Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for making it to my talk today on public goods. I hope you guys are having a really good time at ECC and the whole blockchain week in Paris. So I took the liberty of changing the name of the title, so thank you for bearing with me. So today I want to talk about public goods, and what I want to do is not shill a product or like not do some kind of shilling, but what I want to do is like, sorry about that. What I want to do is like give you a framework to look upon, give you a framework to work with. And I will use Comet as an example, which is like the, the consensus protocol as an example of public good. But you can very well strike down Comet and then replace it with your project and see how it fits into your narrative. So with that introduction given, let me start off this presentation by throwing a question at you guys. What do you do when a comet is approaching Earth? And for some, the answer might be obvious, but some might have a mischievous mind. So while you think about the answer, I will give you a quick introduction about me. So my name is Ali, and I currently work at Informal Systems. If you already know Informal Systems, hurrah. If you don't, boo. Well, Informal is one of the core contributors in Cosmos, which does a lot of things. So we steward Cosmos Hub, we steward Comet BFT, we also work on a relayer called Hermes, we also do formal verification, we also do Ko-Fi, and a lot of other things. So basically, I can go on and on about the company, but in the nutshell, we are a core contributor to Cosmos ecosystem. Now, coming back to the question that I asked before, what would you do when a comet is about to hit the Earth? And the sane answer to say would be you would take proactive measures to prevent the comet, correct? Now, if you would say, oh, that's something that might happen in the future and we're not concerned about it, well, you're in bad luck, because if the comet is actually coming and you're not prepared for it, well, you are going to die and it's going to be doomsday. And I use the analogy of Comet because public goods, in a very, very similar fashion, is like a comet. So you have a public good, which is like awesome, doing awesome things. And if you don't make sure that this public good exists in the future, and if you don't take proactive measures to prevent this public good from like drowning or disappearing or whatever, you might end up in a situation where the ecosystem might collapse or might just be like sort of useless. So for today's agenda, I want to primarily focus on three things. One thing I want to focus on is setting up the definition of public goods. I spoke to a lot of people in this conference, in other conferences. I spoke to a lot of people, both online, offline, and the definition part is kind of missing. I think that we should get that straight first. Number two, I want to talk about a bit about Comet BFT, what is it, and that will give you a landscape of why and how does it fit into this narrative of public goods in general. And then I want to share my concerns and possible solutions. Now, again, I will use Comet as an example, but as I said before, you can just strike out Comet and put in your project, and the framework would still work for you. And lastly, a bit of a looking ahead thing, a code, and sort of open up to you guys to kind of ponder upon the thoughts. Okay, so let's start with the definitions. And this is the formal definition of public goods, so you can read about it. But my personal understanding of public goods is it is a tool that makes your life so much easier, but you're thankless about it. Well, that's not a very apt way of saying it, but most of the people are thankless and don't even know that something like this exists that makes their life better. Because if you don't pay for something, you kind of don't pay attention to it. So that's the definition of public goods that I have in mind, along with this theoretical definition that you can maybe take a picture of or whatever. And I want to talk a little bit about Comet BFT as well. So then we can put it into the narrative of public goods. So how many of you know about Tendermint, like Tendermint, the consensus protocol? Okay, so I think a handful of people already know about Tendermint. So Tendermint is the state application engine that has been powering almost the entire Cosmos stack. In December last year, Tendermint, the team that was maintaining Tendermint, I mean the original team, like they froze development of Tendermint at 0.34, and that's when we took the reins of it, and we forked it to be called Comet BFT. So Comet BFT right now is the default consensus engine for almost all the applications that are run on Cosmos ecosystem, except for a handful of them. Most of them would be running on Comet BFT. Well, the technology that powers such an important ecosystem, ironically, it's a public good, and there is no way for us to make money. And this is the reason why we have been pondering upon this idea of how do we make sure that we are sustainable. So if you're wondering, by any chance, like how do we pay salaries for the team of Comet BFT right now? So it's being funded by Interchain Foundations. And I will, in my concern slide, I will like talk about like why is funding through a foundation a very, very bad idea, especially for things like Comet BFT, which is like such a critical, important piece of software. Okay, so my aim is to give you guys a framework that you can walk out with and ponder upon, think upon, start your brain juices flowing so that you can build on top of it. So these are like not exhaustive concerns. Your project might have some specific niche concerns, but like the idea is just to give you a base to like start thinking about. So I've like identified 4 concerns that are that like I have seen repetitively over different conversations that I've been having. My number 1 concern is regulations. And this is the most controversial concern that I have, because how do you make sure that a piece of software is being correctly regulated? As in, like, how do you make sure that the outcome is, they're not just bluffing and saying, oh, we are making this, we're making that, and not delivering anything. How do we really regulate that? If you go to one extreme, you could have a situation where you could have something as strong as SEC, but that would be like a no-no in a decentralized world. If you go to the far other end of the extreme, it would be like, do whatever you want, and then it's again, no one is being accountable. So regulation is one of the things that like I deeply think should be like the thing that should be addressed properly. The other thing is like who decides on fundings. If any one of you has been fortunate enough or unfortunate enough in a sarcastic way to deal with the drama that goes on in Cosmos, most of this drama like stems around fundings. And the problem really is like many people don't think bad of the fundings. Many people are not like, they want bad for the ecosystem. But the problem is they don't understand what is being asked for. So let's say like, I put up a proposal on Cosmos Hub and say, I need like $1 million for X amount of things. Half of the things people don't even understand what it is. And it goes back to the first question, like how do I make sure that thing was being delivered in the first place? So only a handful of people understand, and if even they are being corrupt or whatever, then it is a situation where people are not fully satisfied in voting, like on deciding who gets the funding. Then it leads you to the third point, which is why don't the foundations fund it? So in the previous slide, I said that Comet BFT is being funded by ICF right now. But then there's a major flaw in it. ICF is a non-profit organization which has no source of income. So it has no way to replenish its sources. And it handles, right now it currently funds Comet BFT, Cosmos SDK, IBC, Cosmos Hub, the whole interchain stack. So if ICF keeps giving money and has no way to like replenish its sources, it will soon run out of money. So as Comet BFT, as like other teams in interchain stack, we have to start thinking of how do we make money through Comet BFT and not rely on one foundation solely. And lastly, as a developer myself, I hate this point, but still I'm going to say it, that who is responsible for the mistakes? If I make a bug in the software, I mean, if it's a small thing, it's fine, it's patched, and everyone carries on with their life. But if it's something big, if it's like a huge thing which exposes the entire system to something, and keep in mind, like Comet BFT, like is the core consensus protocol. So if we if we mess up something, like at that level, like I mean, a lot of chains on the top would just be screwed. So who is really responsible for the mistakes? What do we even do? Like, we fire people? Does that like solve the problem? Like, how do you like penalize people? How do you make sure that like people don't take this for granted? And that brings me to my solution space. Again, this is like the solution that I have identified. It's not exhaustive. You can fit in your own solutions, and you can fit in a lot of other things. But yeah, that's the point. The first thing is grants, which I personally hate the most. So think of grants as a battery that's needed to give the ignition to the car. Okay, you got the ignition, the car is started, but to run the car, you need fuel for combustion. So grants could act like this starting point of ignition just to kickstart the project, but then you still need other ways of fuel to keep the company or keep the project running. So grants is my least favorite one. Tax on usage. So this is a bit of a controversial one, like you kind of tax the usage. In case of Comet BFT, very simple thing to do. So we identify all the chains that use Comet BFT, and we tax them, and we say, oh, if you want to use Comet, you have to like pay this amount of tax. But then the question is, we are an open source software, so how do we stop them, or how do we like make sure that they are paying the tax? So that would lead us to going to the other part of the thing, which is like pool of funds. So each chain would keep a pool of funds that is responsible for funding a public good. So let's say Cosmos Hub, for example, Osmosis, for example, would have a pool of fund that is funding the public goods item. I know what you're thinking. How do you make those chains pay? How do you make those chains contribute to the pool? The answer is my fourth solution, which is coalition. I use this word mafia. Not a very good word to use, but I use it as an adjective, not a verb. So what I really mean by a mafia is a group of people, right? A group of validators, for example, a group of developers, a group that like puts social pressure or like whatever they could do to kind of make sure that the chains are funding, or that the chains are putting money back into the ecosystem through like some sort of community pool or whatever. So I think like for the other two solutions to work, coalition is kind of an important thing. It sort of like leads to a different kind of an area which might be negative, but I think to get started, this is a good way. And the last two things are the easiest ones, the favorite ones. One is hybrid model. So with hybrid model, I like to give the example of WordPress. I really love how they do it. So it's a freemium model where you get certain things for free. So we just like open up our software. I mean, it's already open. So we have all the features open, but we select a few features and close them. And only if you pay for those things, we open them up to you. So it would be like a freemium model. Just to make an addition to that thing, in hybrid model, what we could also include is consultancy kind of things. So to review your PR or to provide you with solutions or like or whatever things, dedicate like certain amount of time to you to like make sure that your project is running correctly according to the standards. We could do like consulting services. So that could be an addition to this hybrid model. And lastly, what I have is like fund individual features. So here's my thought on it. We make a list of features that we think, okay, this is the list of features that I want to finish in 2024, and I pass it around all the teams. And I say, oh, are you interested in like any of these features to be done on a priority? And you would say, yes, this is a thing that could like get me millions of dollars worth of whatever assets or. And then you say, okay, can you prioritize this? And we say, okay, we can prioritize this, and we'll charge you X amount of money to prioritize this. So we make sure that you get the feature and you get the value acquired with it, and that also like in turn pays us, and then we can pay our salaries. Okay, so just to conclude, I started off with the definition of public goods, and I started off giving you all of the different things that, like how Comet BFT as a project could fit into this narrative of public goods, which again you can like put in your own project. And then I spoke about a bit of about the concerns and the solutions of like how I think public goods should be addressed. And in my last concluding 2 slides, what I want to do is like, I want to leave you with a thought to tinker your brain. The best projects will only survive through collaboration. So if you think that you can survive in isolation or without the help of other projects, especially without the help of public good projects, then I'm sorry. You're truly, truly mistaken. And I will leave you all with this quote. Hopefully you can like take a photo of it and tweet it. So I'll leave you with this quote. And yeah, that's it from my side. I think we might have some time for the questions. So again, I appreciate you all listening to my talk. Thank you.